Hi folks, welcome back. In today's episode of America, the Gaslight Theater Edition, we're diving headfirst into the fever dream that is modern Democrat politics, where accountability is optional, victimhood is fashionable, and sleeping with foreign spies apparently makes you the real patriot. That's right. Eric Swalwell, best known for leaking more than just intelligence, now says Republicans mock him not because he got compromised by a Chinese operative, but because he's a straight white Christian male. Bold move. Turning espionage into an identity crisis. But hey, when your party runs on moral inversion and gas-fueled delusion, I guess treason is just another Tuesday. So buckle up, because these clips expose the left's latest talent, turning national embarrassment into self-righteous cosplay.
Did the Chinese spy scandal hurt your credibility, or did Republicans just weaponize like a nothing burger, so to speak?
You know, the fact that the FBI and the House Ethics Committee said it was bullshit, like, I would hope that would be enough, but like in a disinformation society, like, I recognize that it's everyone on the right's favorite meme. My wife tells me all the time, you know what, the second they're not going after you, you're not effective. And so I wear it as a badge of honor that these guys would want to lie about me all the time, because I think it means that I'm landing
Oh my God, dude.
punches politically on them.
You are so delusional.
And frankly, I think a lot of Republicans look at me as like, oh, that's a straight, white, Christian male, son of a cop. Like, everyone else like him looks like me. So when he comes at me, it's more betrayal to them.
Jesus.
Like, I've heard that from them on their side, that's why they take it so personally. So I'm not going away, and they can say what they want, and the death threats will come. But if they think I'm going to drop my lawsuit from January 6th against the president, or if I regret being an impeachment manager, or if I'm not going to like go out and work my ass off to help us win the midterms, like, they're wrong. Like, I'm not going away. I came from nothing. I was raised by a cop who did the right thing. Like, to me, I'm playing with the house's money, so to speak. And so this is just a right or wrong mission for me.
Do you get a lot of push?
Well, what we're witnessing here with Eric Swalwell isn't just political theater, it's a cultural mirror. A man who was literally entangled in a relationship with a suspected Chinese spy now tells the American public he's the real victim, because get this, he's a straight white Christian male. This is how deep into the identity politics abyss we've fallen. Even the people who used to mock white male victimhood now try to wear it as armor when the heat turns on them. That's not accountability, by the way. It's just straight up cosplay. Swalwell isn't offering any sort of explanation. He's offering a distraction. The goal here is not to clarify, it's to confuse, recasting his own embarrassing national security lapse as evidence of Republican fragility. It's the oldest trick in the book. When caught red-handed, no pun intended, accuse your critics of bad motives. Frame their concern as racism, sexism, or in this case, reverse betrayal because you look like them. Never mind that he was warned by intelligence agencies. Never mind that Fang Fang was documented infiltrating U.S. politics. In Swalwell's world, facts are just memes, unless they help him spin a personal narrative. But this isn't just about him. Swalwell is a case study in how the left has reprogrammed public discourse. In today's political environment, moral responsibility has been replaced with narrative control. You're not judged by what you did, but by how effectively you can frame what you did as someone else's fault. The left cultural institutions, media, academia, the entertainment complex have trained an entire generation of politicians to avoid self-reflection by weaponizing language. This information society, badge of honor. They hate me because I'm white and Christian. This isn't accountability, it's brand management. Now, what makes this moment so telling is that Swalwell genuinely believes he's on the right or wrong mission. He sees no contradiction between advocating for national security while having a history of compromising it. That's the power of ideological insulation. When you're surrounded by institutions that affirm your righteousness no matter what, you lose a capacity to recognize your own hypocrisy. This is the America we live in now, where the line between self-delusion and public service is paper thin, and where national security scandals are treated like resume builders if they fit the right political narrative. The danger isn't just that Swalwell gets away with it, it's that the culture he represents rewards it. And speaking of low IQ moves, Democrats are really out here proving to everyone just how absolutely retarded they are. Case in point, this Vermont congresswoman who said this in the most shameless manner.
We have to come to a place in Congress where it is no longer a political issue, but we see it as an existential issue for the country. If we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or to build a home here, I'm going to be really crude right now. We're not going to have anybody around to wipe our asses because we don't have enough people.
Look, I could care less what Congresswoman Becca Balint says. We live in a free country. You're allowed to say whatever you want, however you want. But the funny thing to me is the thing that sticks out, the hypocrisy. This is the same party, the Democrat Party, that threw a national tantrum when Trump allegedly called certain countries shithole countries that, let's be honest, millions of people are fleeing for a reason. But now we've got a Democrat congresswoman casually telling her own constituents that unless we import more labor, we won't have anyone to wipe our asses. That's not parody. That's an actual quote. You just heard it. This isn't a gaffe, by the way. It's a window into the class contempt that lives just beneath the surface of progressive rhetoric. These are the same people who preach about equity, dignity, and the inherent worth of every person until they start talking about any issue, primarily immigration in this case. Then suddenly immigrants are reduced to a labor caste, nameless, faceless bodies brought in not to pursue the American dream, but to service the lifestyles of Americans too comfortable to sustain their own economy. It's not about building a future together. It's about maintaining a fragile elite who sees manual labor as something beneath them but essential to their comfort, while also building a perpetual voter class that will vote for you even though you thoroughly despise them. This is how the modern left talks when they forget the cameras are rolling. The mask slips, and you see all that moral posturing about welcoming immigrants and inclusive policy is often just cover for an exploitative economic model and electorate development model they're too cowardly to admit they support and have been developing over the last few years. They don't want working class Americans to hear that they could be trained, paid, and empowered to do these jobs. No! They want to keep wages suppressed, import dependency, and then frame anyone who objects as a xenophobe. It's sleight of hand to hide your exploitation behind a flag of virtue. And this is a much broader trend. The fusion of identity politics with open border economics has created a new kind of ruling class liberalism, one that sells compassion on the surface but relies on inequality underneath. That's why they get so angry when someone like Trump disrupts the script, when he actually starts enforcing border laws. Because he didn't just insult certain countries, he didn't just close down the border, he broke the illusion. He reminded Americans that border policy is about sovereignty, security, and self-determination, not moral theater. So when people like Balint says, we won't have anyone to wipe our asses, or when other Democrats say that we need people to pick up our crops, they're not joking. They're summarizing an entire worldview where the purpose of immigration is to serve the needs of their elite class, not to integrate into a cohesive national identity, where American citizenship is no longer something sacred, but something strategically diluted to serve short-term labor and electoral goals. And the worst part, she probably thought she was being relatable for some weird reason. That's how far removed these people are. They don't even hear how dystopian they sound. Now, all that being said, it's never been more clear that Democrats are the party of bad policies, bad ideas, and just everything bad. And you need to look no further than what's happening at high school track meets all over the country.
The greatest moment of 16-year-old Clara Adams' young career taken away from her because of a celebration. After winning the 400-meter event at the CIF State Championships with a time of 53.24 seconds, her dream of winning a state title went up in flames after celebrating using a fire extinguisher.
When she blew the fire extinguisher, the opponents were gone. That was our moment of celebration. And the CIF officials made that about them. The crowd went crazy. They loved it. The booth, CIF booth went crazy. They loved it. But those few guys in those jackets, they took offense to it, didn't like it, and they made a decision based on emotions.
The North Salinas High sophomore grabbed a fire extinguisher from her father and coach and extinguished off her spikes. The CIF deemed her celebration unsportsmanlike, stripping her of her title. It's a celebration made famous by American sprint icon Maurice Green, who who enjoyed her paying homage to him and thinks she should get her state title back.
When I heard, like, because it happened and then people just started calling me, oh, this girl who just won the 400 redid your celebration. I was like, huh, what? If it was away from everyone and not really interfering with anybody, I would say reinstate her.
One clear infraction was Clara's father hopping the railing onto the track after the race, but says he only did that because of how CIF officials were treating his daughter.
There's a CIF rule saying you can't come over the wall, you can't be on the infield, which is a rule respected. But at this point, I explained before about being a coach and a father wearing the different hats. I saw an official grab my daughter by the arm. They were yelling in her face. When he grabbed her by the arm, I went over the wall at that point. I'm father now. I'm not coach anymore. I'm over the wall.
Now, the true fastest 400-meter runner in the state is back home without a medal. And even if the CIF is to reinstate her as the champion, she never got that moment of being crowned a champion.
In California, if you're a biological male competing in female sports, you're given every bit of support and hailed as a hero. But if you're an actual woman like Clara Adams, and you dare to celebrate your win with a little bit of style, the system will humiliate you, strip your medal, and erase your moment in the name of sportsmanship. That's in heavy air quotes. Let that sink in, folks. A 16-year-old girl trained for years, won the biggest race of her life, and was disqualified for using a fire extinguisher in a moment of joy, a celebration that honored a track legend and harmed literally no one. Meanwhile, the same institutions bend over backward to accommodate boys and girls' locker rooms, hormone-injected sprinters in women's heats, and radical ideology in every rule book. What happened to Clara isn't just a bad call from a few bitter officials. It's the logical endpoint of a system that now views excellence, joy, and even femininity with suspicion, unless it's filtered through the right political narrative. Clara didn't just win a race. She disrupted the sterile, control-obsessed culture of modern sports bureaucracy, and that's why they came down on her. The crowd loved her. The moment was electric. But CIF officials, the gatekeepers of this broken system, made it about themselves because in their eyes, pride is only acceptable if it conforms to their ideological choreography and celebrated in June. This is the same state that teaches children to question their biology at 5, but punishes a teenage girl for being too confident in hers. And it's not just California. This trend is everywhere. The policing of expression, the sanitization of competition, and the slow, quiet erasure of everything that makes sports meaningful. They say it was unsportsmanlike conduct. No. What's unsportsmanlike is destroying a young woman's defining moment over a prop. What's unsportsmanlike is treating a celebration like a crime scene and a father like a threat for defending his daughter from being manhandled by a bunch of officials. What's unsportsmanlike is burying merit under layers of rules meant not to preserve fairness, but to preserve control. This is about more than track and field, by the way. It's about a culture that punishes real achievement if it doesn't follow this tightly created script. We're told to sit, quietly conform, and not shine too bright unless you're a protected class, unless your identity fits the right leftist agenda. Clara didn't, obviously, in this case. Maybe if she were out on the street, it'd be a little different for some Democrats out there. But in this case, nope. So they made an example out of her. And the message is clear. In today's America, it's not enough to be the best. You have to be compliant. We should all be outraged by this, because if this is how we treat a 16-year-old girl who did everything right, trained hard, ran clean, won honestly, what does that say about what we're becoming as a society? It says our institutions no longer reward excellence, they punish it, especially when it dares to stand tall, celebrate loud, and refuse to apologize for winning. And speaking of winning, we're going to close with a huge win that President Trump announced yesterday.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies. and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That's why on my first day back in office, I directed the Secretary of State to perform a security review of high-risk regions and make recommendations for where restrictions should be imposed. Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
I think it goes without saying that this is essential. America is a country that proudly accepts immigrants, but enough is enough. In this case, the situation is getting dangerous, unsustainable, and frankly insane. What President Trump just laid out isn't xenophobia, even though that's how the mainstream media is likely going to frame it. It's common sense. If we can't verify who someone is, where they've been, or whether their government cooperates with basic security protocols, then why on earth would we open doors without question? That's not compassion. That's national suicide dressed up as virtue. And let's be clear, these travel restrictions aren't random. They're based on data. Countries with active terrorist networks, failed governments, or zero infrastructure to track who's coming and who's going. We're talking about places like Somalia, Yemen, Libya, nations in chaos where vetting isn't just difficult, it's impossible. And yet, under Biden's open door era, these distinctions were erased. The moral high ground was redefined as letting in whoever shows up at the door, no matter the risk. And we've seen the consequences: rising crime, terrorist plots, and a complete breakdown of border integrity, not to mention the attack that happened this past week in Boulder. Now, I think it goes without saying that this goes a little further than the threat of terrorism as well. It's about restoring the concept of national sovereignty. We're decades into this globalist experiment where Western countries are told they must absorb the burdens of the world. No questions asked, but while Europe has paid the price through radicalization, crime waves, and just straight up cultural collapse, America still has a choice. And Trump is making it clear that choice is to put American safety, sanity, and sovereignty first. But of course, the media will scream racism, isolationism, because that's the script. They won't tell you that countries like Japan, Singapore, and even Mexico enforce strict immigration standards. They won't tell you that the nations on this list are largely uncooperative with global security norms. They'd rather just twist this into a moral panic than admit the truth. Borders exist for a reason. And let's be brutally honest for a second. The left's influence over immigration policy has been one long gaslight. They've turned "we should know who's entering the country" into a controversial statement. They've conflated legal, merit-based immigration with uncontrolled mass entry, and worst of all, they've weaponized compassion to weaken national identity, pushing the idea that protecting our own people is somehow immoral, while at the same time doing the same thing that Congresswoman we saw just minutes ago did, relying to some of the lowest stereotypes to characterize why America needs immigrants. But Americans are waking up. We know the difference between immigration and invasion. We know that letting in thousands of unvetted strangers from hostile regions is not a kindness. It's a risk to our families, our infrastructure, and our values. So yes, this new executive order matters. It marks a cultural turning point. It says we've had enough of being shamed into silence. We will welcome those who follow the rules, who respect our laws, and who love this country. But if we can't verify your background, or if your government won't work with yours, or you're thinking that you can just come here illegally and take advantage of our welfare system, then no. You don't get to come here and you don't get to stay. Not because we hate you, but because we love what we're trying to protect. And for once, sanity is back in charge. So the question now isn't just whether these policies are right or wrong. It's whether we as a nation are still willing to think critically at all. Or are we so paralyzed by fear of being called names that we'll ignore what's plainly in front of us? Do we still believe a country has the right to protect its borders, its culture, and its citizens? Or has that become too politically inconvenient? These aren't abstract debates anymore. They shape the neighborhoods we live in, the safety of our cities, and the future our kids will inevitably inherit. If truth has become offensive and common sense controversial, then maybe the real threat isn't who's coming in, but what we've already let in through the front door of our national psyche. Think about that, because if you don't ask hard questions now, you might not recognize the answers later. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.